Rome was a giant. She was the master of the world, her power absolute. Her legions were a tide of steel that had drowned empires. The city sat upon its throne, confident, untouchable, believing its dominion was protected by the natural order of things. To the north, a great wall of stone and ice stood sentinel, the Alps. These mountains were not just a barrier, they were a fortress built by the gods themselves. Rome looked at its maps and saw safety, impassable cliffs and frozen wastelands. Rome was wrong. It had forgotten the power of a single, unyielding will. A shadow was moving from the south. His name was Hannibal Barca, son of Carthage, forged in rivalry. He carried a sacred oath sworn in his youth, to bring Rome to its knees. He would not sail the sea. He would not march the coast. He would go where no army had gone before. From Spain, across Gaul, directly over the frozen spine of the Alps. The plan, simple in objective, impossible in execution. The journey began under a clear sky. The lower slopes were green and alive, the air crisp and full of promise. But as they climbed, the world changed. The trees thinned, then vanished, replaced by barren rock and patches of stubborn, dirty ice. The path, once wide, narrowed to a treacherous ledge, a thin scar on a cliff. Below, the abyss waited, a drop that swallowed screams. A proud river of soldiers became a fragile thread of humanity, inching toward the heavens. The sky, once blue, became a permanent shroud of iron gray. Wind howled through the passes. It tore at cloaks and pushed men toward the edge, carrying a cold that seeped into their bones. Then came the snow, first a fine powder, then a blinding, suffocating blizzard that erased the path and filled the crevasses. The world became a monochrome nightmare, survival measured in hours, not days. Hannibal moved among his men, his face a mask of grim determination. He saw frostbite blacken fingers and toes, exhaustion glaze eyes, and despair threaten resolve. He offered no soft words. His presence was a command. He led from the front, sharing the same brutal cold. Men of different tribes and nations followed not a flag or a king, but the force of his character, the promise of Italy in his eyes. The local tribes, fierce and territorial, saw the struggling army as prey. From the high ground they sent boulders thundering down, swift and devastating. Supply lines were cut, men isolated and slaughtered. Hannibal fought with cunning, setting his own traps, turning the mountain against his foes. Every skirmish cost him precious lives he could not replace. One man set out to break an empire by breaking the laws of nature. The world watched, holding its breath. At the highest altitudes, the air grew thin and sharp, a blade in the lungs with every breath. The world became a silent, frozen purgatory. Some sat to rest and never rose again. The great war elephants endured torment, feet slipping on ice, thick hides no shield from the cold. More than one lost footing and vanished into the void, a chilling sight for hardened men. Supplies lost to ambush, to accidents, to the mountain itself. Hunger became a gnawing companion. They boiled leather for broth and fought over frozen scraps. For 9 days they were trapped in white hell, blizzard, freezing darkness, and comrades perishing without a fight. He kept a flame of hope alive, speaking of warm plains, rich vineyards, Roman cities ripe for the taking. The descent was more treacherous, the southern face steeper, the snow melting by day and refreezing by night into sheer ice. Men slid uncontrollably, animals crashed into ranks, some tumbled hundreds of feet to the rocks below. A section of trail collapsed, progress halted. For 3 days the army was paralyzed. Refusing defeat, Hannibal ordered a new path cut into the mountain, fire to heat the rock and vinegar to crack it, laboring day and night. They were ghosts of themselves, yet something inside hardened like the rock. They were no longer just soldiers, they were survivors. After 15 days of hell, They stumbled onto warm, soft ground beneath a brilliant blue sky. Of nearly 60,000 who began, fewer than half remained. Of 37 elephants, only a handful survived. News reached Rome, not laughter, but stunned disbelief. The impossible had happened. An army, with elephants, had descended from the Alps. He gave his men no rest. On the Po Valley plains, at the Ticinus and then the Trebia, his hardened veterans shattered the legions. The Gallic tribes flocked to his banner. He had bypassed Rome's defenses, rewriting the book of war. For over a decade he rampaged through Italy, Lake Trasimene, the slaughter at Cannae, never taking the city, but shattering its aura of invincibility. The image of elephants in snow endures. A clash of worlds, nature pushed to its limit by the ambition of man. They became living monuments to an impossible journey, proof that Hannibal Barca did not bow to mortal limits. He gambled everything on a single, bold stroke and won his aim.